And I love being here with Carlos because, you know, he's just brings such a breath of fresh air and strength and love and wisdom to the work, and to the idea that we all, and all of you are part of this, you know, can find ways to end hunger and poverty as well in New Mexico and in our communities. And so just want to say thanks for everything that you all do in your own ways, and as a collective, as a coalition. And I will let you know, I'm actually here being joined by Hercules, my 16-pound cat, who now got hair. So if I start to look like I'm itching, it's got hair floating everywhere. So Hercules is with us too. So really thank you for the invitation to be here. And so I'm Pam Roy, as Carlos mentioned, and I am the executive director of Farm to Table, a nonprofit organization. We're based outside of Santa Fe, yet statewide in our approach. And we're structured a little bit differently because we actually are home to, and it was part of our reason to structure this way, to the New Mexico Food and Agriculture Policy Council, which is about to celebrate its 20th year. We're one of the longest ongoing food and agriculture food policy councils in the country, one of the first to get started as well. And just a little bit about what that looks like. It is, we're not a single issue advocacy organization or coalition. We are a multiples of hunger, and hunger's been, you know, the work around hunger has been at our table ever since the inception. But hunger, food, agriculture, health, economic options for our state, and education, how all these pieces intersect as much as possible. And we are also a coalition. A part of it is they were structured that we are both agencies, individuals, and organizations. So agencies are at the table for the very reason so that we understand and we can learn more about how, if we roll out programs through a legislative process, how does that agency then have to manage and make sure that program rolls out into communities? And it has been a really, really important structure to be living in and living with all this time, because we've gained such incredible relationships with the agencies over the years. And I'll speak to that because Representative Stansberry's bill, House Bill 207, really speaks to the importance of us all working together out in our communities and inside government, whether it be at the very local level, the municipality level, tribal level, state level, and even federal too. So just a little bit of a breadth there. And then we also are home to what's called what started as Farm to School and is now a state agency or initiative called New Mexico Grown. And I'll share a little bit more about why that's important and with some of the legislative outcomes. Just thinking about, you know, I want to say thanks to Elizabeth, where was Elizabeth, sorry, it was Mary saying, we've been working on hunger all this time, you know, and it is still really prevalent here in Mexico, always falling in these unfortunate statistics around it. And I want to say to all of you and my dear friend Sherry Hooper and our food assistance programs for the more than monumental lift over this last year to make sure that everybody is food secure as much as possible, that they're cared for, they know that people care about them. And it isn't just about the food, it's about the people who are out there on the front lines. And I can't say enough, never be able to say enough about how much I appreciate what you all do and the collective effort there. And from that, not just that, but many things we've been learning for a long time, and Sherry and I will see many of our dreams come true soon. We have lots of, we've been talking about what are those relationships, right? So hunger is not siloed, neither is where our food is produced, and neither is where we get it from and how it's consumed, and farmers themselves who are actually growing it for us. And they too are at great risk and stand on a front line all the time. And this year, as you know, are facing the major water shortages, of course. And to say that is that agriculture in New Mexico is our third largest economic sector. So many might not know that. Yet 97% of what we grow, raise in New Mexico is exported out of the state. And the pandemic shed a very large light on the importance of what local means and what it means to grow and expand what we're doing in New Mexico, creating more market opportunities, making sure that not only do those who are at risk, be able to eat local as well, but also that local is in not just our restaurants and our grocery stores, but our institutions where we have federal, state, local food and nutrition programs. So to that, one of the long range pieces of work that the New Mexico Food and Ag Policy Council is focused on are the intersections between hunger, where our food comes from, agriculture, and the economic options and opportunities there as well. And this year we saw numerous initiatives that were really exciting at the legislature. I'll bring up a couple, and then also really that growth. And I'll use the example, and Carlos asked, the New Mexico Grown Program. Many of you know what we've been doing for a long time, and that is to look at nutrition and where do we meet, where are we working on nutrition with populations, right? So New Mexico Grown produce in school meals. The idea is to make sure that children are getting and students are getting the freshest options. And then New Mexico farmers are actually building out business opportunities, and we're keeping that money at home in our state, and those dollars then multiply. This year we've been able, and we did a pilot project last year with the state for aging and long-term services, and figuring out how to build this program out into senior services. And thanks to Senator Liz Stefanik, Representative Gail Armstrong, and others who really care deeply, deeply about what's happening for our seniors, the legislature passed $97,600 and potentially another $50,000 for us to establish a statewide program. Every one of those dollars will be turned out to providers, being food service directors, school for senior centers, to be able to buy local. What's really exciting about that idea of working with agencies and not hoisting something onto them is that Aging and Long-Term Services is so excited about this program that not only they're going to ask their providers, there's over 200 senior service providers, including in tribal communities, to apply for the local funds, and that's not a lot of money. They're going to put into their plans for every senior service center provider to purchase at least 5% New Mexico grown out of other funds, like federal funds, some of the federal funds, their county funds, and things like that. So they are very committed to that idea that seniors get the freshest local produce. And when we rolled out the pilot program last year, seniors were ecstatic, and it was during the pandemic when much of that food was being delivered, home delivered, and we were able to get fresh, beautiful salad greens and heirloom tomatoes to seniors through that program. So really excited to have an agency that's interested in that and interested in the growth. And the second part of that is because we've been working on this for so long, now we have Aging and Long-Term Services, Public Education Department, Early Childhood Education Department, Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Health, who've created an interagency task force to focus on this program being solidified across all these agencies and across generations. And as our senior population is our fastest growing population in New Mexico, we see this program will expand probably pretty rapidly, especially with an agency that cares so much. The Early Childhood Education Department also, we did have an introductory bill. Didn't get any funding on it, but we have some philanthropic dollars that will actually be able to help us get that started and do several pilot projects around the state. And we'll do as much to intertwine those. So that's one part of it. And just a couple other things, because I know I need to pass the baton for sure. several other things that are associated with that. One bill that, again, just didn't quite, it was on the schedule for the House to pass it, was House Bill, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's called the Healthy Food Financing Act. And this is in La Semilla Food Center, which is an incredible organization based in southern New Mexico, in Anthony, New Mexico, but also does a lot of really important policy work. Focused on the idea, and this is it's a federal program as well, but for the state to initiate a program that would provide funding, investments, financial investments into things like rural grocery stores in areas where a national distributor or national store chain would not exist and or is pulled out of, and that a local bank would not finance, but that it provides the idea, not only the idea, but to create and provide the support for local communities to be able to have their own grocery stores in places that are very small, very rural, potentially in tribal communities. And the emphasis of this bill is for those funds to be prioritized in BIPOC communities, underserved, and as I mentioned, rural, and that it is organizations and businesses that are people of color led that get first choice to be able to apply for the program. So it was amazing to watch this bill move through the process because of the way it's written. It was somewhat untraditional as a bill because it really focused on what it means, what underserved potentially means, and what it means to be equitable, and what racial equity and social and economic equity really mean to our communities, what it means to lift us out of hunger and poverty by putting the investments in the right places. So the good news is that even though the act didn't pass, the Economic Development Department and many partners can continue to move on this program. There's $100,000 that was actually put in that is in place for the Economic Development Department to get this off the ground. And the state agency can apply for federal fundings out of the Healthy Food Financing Initiative up to $2 million a year to bring home to New Mexico. So whether we as a state invest in this program or not, the state can actually apply for funding to bring home and invest in New Mexico. So a couple of examples of really great, incredible work on the ground in community work, some really innovative things that really focused on making sure that everybody counts in the state. And then building out programs like New Mexico Grown, the idea of really making the best nutritious foods happen. And then really kudos to everybody, Representative Ferrari, Representative Stansberry, who also worked on House Bill 133 to your point earlier about getting New Mexico or getting food into our colleges for those who again are facing hunger and food insecurity. And there's $100,000 that's been put towards that legislatively. So I'll stop there and we can talk about some of the other things that have come up and circle back around on some of that if you want.
Muted.
That's okay. No, you can tell I can talk all day. So. There are other good things that pass, so, and they are associated. It's in perfect timing. Representative Stansberry is with us. So, and Representative Stansberry, I'm not sure if you heard those sharing out a little bit, but said that House Bill 207, the Hunger, Food, and Farming Act, was a really great way to showcase the importance of interagency and that private sector work and all of us working collectively in the intersections, interfaces. And I didn't go into it much because I know that that's where you're here, but kind of